All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course. I gotta wait a few seconds for it to load. I like how people think that I'm late. I'm not late. I arrive precisely when I mean to. So let me make sure that we're actually live over on Rumble. I think the delay is shorter now. They must have done an upgrade or an update yesterday. Live chat is working. I see plenty of clanks from Fire Rod, Information Warlord, and Skate Betty. We'll be talking about numerous news stories today. Some of them are fun. A couple of them are just for my own entertainment. Like one is in Vermont. That's just my own personal bitch with our, stupid state government. We're going to be talking about a bit of culinary lore as well. Don't worry, we'll get into that. Tasty culinary lore. If you like, ethnic food, if you like your food heavily seasoned and really fragrant or, pungent, as you may describe it, I am definitely your man. If you want more traditional Euro-style food, Liz probably should cook your dinner, just to be clear. When it comes to Stompot, she is definitely superior to me. Anyway, we'll get right into this. First and foremost, we have a new Twitter files drop. This is through Matt Taibbi again. Finally, they appear to be collating it properly so that I'll actually be able to talk about it when the Twitter threads drop. Thread, Twitter files number 14, the Russiagate lies. 1, the fake tale of Russian bots, and hashtag release the memo. And you can go through this if you want. Again, you've got documentation, you have emails, you have summaries. The Nunes assertions would virtually all be verified in a report by Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz in December 2019. Executive summary. You've got various news articles. This is a little bit more sophisticated than the earlier drops, by the way, via the Thread Reader app here. Feinstein weighing in. I'll read through a couple of these. This is number 9. On January 23rd, 2018, Senator Dianne Feinstein, who now is being challenged by Katie Porter despite not having made her mind up whether to run or not. All signs point to no since she's 89, but you could wait until your long-suffering colleague leaves before you say that you want the Senate seat. And Congressman Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, of course, who has been attempting to censor American citizens illegally for some time now, published an open letter saying the hashtag gained the immediate attention and assistance of social media accounts linked to Russian influence operations. Yes, everything that's inconvenient is automatically Russia. Number 10, Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal followed suit, publishing a letter saying, "We find it reprehensible that Russian agents have so eagerly manipulated innocent Americans." Of course, when you really think about it, it's not against TOS, number 1, and it's not unlawful speech, number 2. Doesn't fucking matter if it comes from Russia. Now, to be clear, you are still allowed to utter it. Feinstein, Schiff, Blumenthal, and media members all pointed to the same source. The Hamilton 68 dashboard created by former FBI counter-intel official Clint Watts under the auspices of the Alliance for Securing Democracy, or ASD. The dashboard, which featured a crude picture of Vladimir Putin deviously blowing evil red Twitter birds into the atmosphere, it's very Soviet style, I think it was adapted from Soviet iconography, literally, was vague in how it reached its conclusions. If you go through this, I'm not going to read through them all. What you will understand is that the claim of Russian disinfo, even where it wasn't being peddled by individuals who were being malevolent, so that they were just trying to censor people for political reasons, it was ignorant and it was wrong. There certainly, in full admission, let's point one thing out. It is absolutely the case that Russian agents, Russian espionage groups, etc., attempt to influence online conversations. It would be crazy if they didn't. The same happens with U.S. groups. Again, I get back to the Facebook pages run by the U.S. Air Force back at the end of the 2000s. They had 10,000 burner accounts on there. The Chinese do this, Israel does it, the UK does it, France does it. Effectively, every major economy in the world has at least some group of people that are attempting to influence online convos. North Korea probably does this. Despite the fact that they're not hooked up to the internet, it would be strange if there weren't 4 or 5 North Koreans that were allowed outside internet access in order to spread, what you could conceive of as disinfo. They would call it a positive message. They would call it positive messaging. For instance, if we look at this, The Russians would not consider this disinformation, assuming that they're behind any specific post or hashtag that's being made. They would consider it to be PR, effectively. The United States government does exactly the same thing. It's not apples to oranges. It's literally apples to apples in that sense. You can go along through it. There's about 40 posts here. Twitter had no editorial input on the story. Searches were carried out by third parties, so documents could be limited. They have to put that disclaimer in there, of course, because third parties are the ones filtering through the emails, etc. Again, the important part is this. Russian disinfo claims, in some cases, not all, but in some cases, were being malevolently put out there. So the claim that there was disinfo was known to be fraudulent. Other people, not in the know of those that were creating those malevolent claims, then peddled them not knowing that they were malevolent. It's sort of like if you look through the FISA process with regards to the investigation into Donald Trump over the Steele dossier. At some point, you go from people knowledgeable about the situation, knowing that what they're peddling is bullshit, to people who are simply ignorant. But it fits their narrative. It fits their cognitive dissonance, so they just assume it's true. And Feinstein definitely is one of the people who has been doing stuff like that. So you can go through that at your leisure. I do encourage you to read through the thread. Again, it's 40 tweets. There are some images, etc., that you can sub-read through. Very, very interesting. Roscoe P. Coltrane, is your screen name a weird reference to your bird? Like, would you like to see my Hexenhammer? No, I've explained my username before. Styx is the river or marsh of Styx. It's from Dante, etc. The Hexenhammer, a famous witch hunting guide. And then the 666 just gets thrown in. Many, many years ago, I put that in there because fundamentalist Christians who already didn't like me, I wanted to piss them off and keep them off the page. Seems to have worked. We have Jezebel B for some cat toys to keep kitties occupied while you stream. Trust me, it won't work. Their favorite toy is the fucking computer screen. Farah doesn't raise hell, though. Farah's the good kitty. By the way, there are two of them. Some people still think there's only one. This is Farah. She is the nice kitty. She sleeps on my legs most of the time. She will cuddle down here and go meow, meow. Yana is the one that zooms around the house and goes crazy. The only thing that Farah does that's wrong is she's got a problem with scratching on the couch. There's a kitty scratch thing literally right next to it. Yana, who is normally the naughty cat, knows to use it. She enjoys that. Farah doesn't get it. She just doesn't understand the concept. Preamble. Howdy, Sticks. Been letting my hair grow since the lockdowns. How the hell do you keep it from falling all over your face? Well, in the wind, it does. I don't know. I just, I shampoo it every other day, roughly. I brush it sometimes in the mornings, or I just run my hands through it. I never condition. I don't do anything else to it. It's just my natural hair. I can't give hair advice other than do as little to it as possible. It'll stay healthy generally. You are the product of evolution. Your hair has already evolved to be useful. And of course, if you're 100,000 years ago hunting woolly mammoths, if your hair is falling down in your face, it's probably a problem. Next news story. Hunter Biden accessed garage where dad kept his Corvette and classified material. I talked about this morning. It's a major news story, but I get major shenanigans vibes from this. And I'm wondering if anyone else, you can tell me in the comments here, has anyone else considered the possibility that they're going to throw Biden under the bus, and then they're going to say, well, we forced him out under the Espionage Act. We expect the GOP to do the same. Basically, to the uniparty Republicans, join with us, block Trump from ever running. You can have your runner-up DeSantis or something like that. I'm almost thinking that that's what they're going to go with. I still think that even odds are that nothing comes of it. Garland immediately, by the way, appointing a counsel to look into the material here. We don't know how many documents or what they contained were at the second location. There are several alarm bells that go on in my head, though. Number one, we're not being told about the severity of the second group of documents. That's a red alert for me. Number two, Garland in his filing, creating a special counsel to look into this, specifically only is allowing the documents that were at UPenn, that was a few days ago, and the documents that were literally in Joe Biden's garage right next to his Corvette number 2. This points to the fact that there may be more documents. And they approached the DOJ and Garland and they said, look, this is going to get really goddamn bad, because then the public will realize, shit, we did 10 times worse than Trump did through negligence mainly. I'm not assuming malevolence. I'm assuming incompetence here more than anything else. But we did violate the Espionage Act. We promised nobody gained access to the materials. Go ahead and appoint the council, but please only look into these 2 drops, because there's more. I think that's probably the case. We may or may not ever get that knowledge about any additional materials that may be out there. It's not even that great a concern. When we look at the Mar-a-Lago materials, they were properly secured. Trump was in communication with the FBI and other groups to make sure that they were secured. There's no evidence that it was ever sold or peddled or what, Brooklyn Dad or some of these other morons would say. There's no evidence of any wrongdoing. The initial FBI report said it looks like these were just kept as mementos, basically. It was secured properly, and a lot of the material there wasn't even classified. It was Time magazine covers and photographs and shit that where they clearly aren't classified. And he did it while he was president, which means that he at least has a legal leg to stand on, even if there is an investigation, and can say, look, I declassified this just by making them public because I happen to be president. Biden was not president. He was vice president. He doesn't enjoy that particular happy executive privilege. So that's going to be potentially a problem. Nonetheless, the idea that Garland, that got his heavy-hitting position from Biden himself after being screwed by Trump, is going to toss Biden under the bus, I think is questionable. If they do, though, all hell will break loose. If Biden is thrown under the bus, here's a prediction. If they go forward with a further investigation and it casts a shadow over his administration, they start saying, well, maybe he's not our man for 24. It will be an invitation, again, little jingle of tinsel there to distract people, for the Republicans to throw Trump under the bus. It will be used to attack Trump. Biden may go bye-bye. Biden may be forced to step aside, but the real prize that they want will be Trump, not Biden. Biden is expendable. He's an old man. He probably can't win re-election even if he wants it. He gets plausible deniability. Basically, they'll comey him. They'll say, look, he done goofed. He broke the law, Espionage Act, etc. Maybe his crack-smoking son did gain access to these documents. Here's a security footage of Chinese spies looking through the 5 documents that were at UPenn. So he has to step down, but we're not going to prosecute him. Let him wander off into the sunset to the OK Corral and have his time in Rehoboth Beach, falling down off his bike till he finally keels. That's what they will do if they go through with the actual investigation, beyond, again, the very preliminary council that Garland has already convened. We have, I'm your daddy, Ari. There's still Americans trapped in Afghanistan. Yeah, and unfortunately, nothing to be done about it. Do you think this administration gives a damn? Alarian Horizon, isn't Brooklyn Dad a paid shill? He is paid to post on Twitter, to be clear. I'm sure that the opinions that he gives are genuinely his, so it's not technically shilling, I suppose. He just happens to be paid to reach out to a large audience, which is never algorithmically throttled away from him, you'll notice. Blue Mongoose, good angle, Sticks. Feels like a setup to me, falling together too easily. Exactly. Yeah, there are so many numerous questions about this. It's not really, I mean, would they even be running with it as a story if that weren't potentially the setup that they were going to make? They literally coordinate with Biden's White House to put out economic news. Why would they all of a sudden be talking about this ship? Especially when it would be fodder for the Trump camp. Unless Joe Biden gets tossed under the bus, in which case it becomes a huge liability for the MAGA movement. And so that's why I think there's a distinct possibility that's what they're angling for. IWD, Biden letting those documents sit in an office at a university known for hosting Chinese spies lends credence to the theory the Biden admin is a Vichy regime appointed by Beijing. Oh, I would agree. He's definitely Beijing Biden. But there's a more immediate issue that would be raised by the legacy media, as I've explained. Silky Johnson, Sticks, you definitely need to get the game Stray. Cats seem to watch that game. It could be what unites your kitties. Plus, you're playing a goddamn cat, man. I've heard of it. Winston Fujimori, thoughts on Ghost Politics' wife being found out as a VTuber Pipkin Pippa and him skipping shows to watch anime with me and her. Hashtag Pippa won best weeb. Hashtag Pippa 4IC. I don't know anything about that, to tell the truth. I guess somebody mentioned weeks ago that Ghost didn't like me anymore or something like that. I don't have any problem with him. He's got interesting content. Keith Spardani will bury Save Joe and say he declassified the docs. That could happen as well. That would be very funny. But Obama tends to be reluctant to weigh in on politics. It's the best thing about him, much like with Jimmy Carter, is his post-presidency. Presidency, 3 out of 10 at best. 2.5 I would give him. Not very great. Post-presidency, for the most part, other than shilling on climate change, he tends to be rather quiet. I think that's to his credit. He realizes the more absent he is, the less flack he gets. Mr. Wonderful, not sure about the US, but Australian media is pushing the Biden staff to discover more classified documents. They are 100% clearing him out. Yeah, he's directed his staff and attorneys to discover documents that he didn't know existed. Very strange. Carradine TBG, who will replace Biden? Well, automatically Kamala, which would be hysterical. I mean, I'm almost hoping that it happens, even if it's bad for Trump. Can you imagine President Kamala Harris not even having been elected and then her having to go before the media? Like, she won't be able to just disappear like she has for the last 2 years and never come out into public. When's the last time that you saw anything about Kamala Harris? It's been a while. Styx Hexen Handsaw. If you come back to rule over the toolbox, we offer you the nails as slaves. You may beat them to your heart's content. P.S. Please, we need this chaos to end. Skate Betty, Pelosi for Kamala's VP, October surprise, Pelosi president by the end. I don't think that's likely to happen. I don't think Kamala could deal with another strong, empowered woman, especially a severely racist one being her VP. Winston Fujimori, Ghost still likes you. He's just disappointed you still support Trump after all the BS he pulled. Yeah, well, I mean, I would be disappointed that he thinks that Trump pulled a bunch of BS that disqualifies him, but I still like his content. Next news story, and I have a prop here. I have something to show you. No, it's not drugs. It's culinary in nature. Devil's dung or dinner delight, the story behind Hing, one of India's most divisive ingredients. Now, I'm going to get a little bit into the legacy media creates the fucking story side of this, but first I want to talk about the culinary side. I am a huge fan of Indian food and of food from South and Southeast Asia. I like a lot of seasoning. I like onions. I like garlic. I like curry. I like paprika. I like sumac is actually fucking delicious. Included in North African dishes as well. Sometimes in blends in Egypt, Morocco, places like that. Sumac is great. And by the way, you can actually, apparently the sumac berries on the trees, you know, the dark red ones that you even have in New England, I think it's literally the same thing. So you can grind up that pith and you can make a spice with it. This is asafoetida. This is Hing. It's one of 2 variants. The first is more pure. It's almost a crystalline solid, and it's considered to be massively pungent. This one is cut with powdered rice and with flour, and it's colored by turmeric. It's a little bit less, it's a little bit more mild, rather. Now, if you smell it, and I actually like the smell, to be clear, again, I like a lot of seasoning, you get, it's twice as pungent as garlic. If you were to like extract garlic oil so it was even more powerful, it would be that plus a little bit of zing that you can't quite describe, almost a little bit of a citrusy-ness, as it were. I think it smells delicious. Anyway, it's an acquired taste. Unlike garlic, have you noticed, if you've ever cooked with garlic, and I'm assuming most of you have if you've cooked, the flavor remains relatively strong in the food when you're cooking it. So you're seasoning meat, whatever. This is completely different. While it smells a lot like garlic, it almost disappears seamlessly into the food. It adds an indescribable flavor. I literally cannot explain to you exactly what it does, but it tends to cook off much more readily than garlic and incorporate itself into the actual food. I think it's delicious. This, by the way, is a lot of Hing. Even this adulterated version that has the powdered rice and stuff in it, you're never going to need more than a teaspoon of this for anything that you're doing. So this is like a 2 or 3 year supply. And thankfully, it lasts a long time, which is good. I like garlic as well, so I'll put them in the same fucking dish. But I wanted to talk about the legacy media here very, very briefly. Devil's dung or dinner delight? The fact is that there is no actual debate over the use of Hing. In the cultures where Hing predominates as a cooking spice, India, Pakistan, etc., where it is common, there is no debate over it. You're using Hing. I mean, you can substitute garlic. It's not going to taste quite the same. I would prefer the Hing, honestly. But I wanted to mention that this article, it comes from CNN Travel, so whatever. Link in the description. You can read it if you want to know the sordid back history of the use of Hing. It's actually, later on, they frame it as India is now trying to grow its own Hing because it's used in a lot of Indian foods, but it's mostly imported from other places because of climatic concerns. You're not going to be growing this in Bengal or something, or Sri Lanka. And yeah, it's not going to grow in Ceylon. It's not going to grow in Goa or someplace like that. So they're trying to grow it on the north end of India, which is a wise decision when you import hundreds of thousands of pounds of it every year. But what is being done here is that they're trying to create a debate where none really exists. Most people outside of that region have never heard of asafoetida. They do not cook with it. They have no real access to it. You can get it here. This is from a fucking site, was it? It was dekruidenbaren.nl. Dutch site, so they import various herbs. Here you have a wider availability than in most of the US to get sort of the exotic herbs and spices, because you have a lot of Moroccan and Turkish influence especially, but also influence from Suriname and places like that. And they like spicier foods. They like things that are more seasoned. Whereas Dutch food is bitterballen, haring, things like that. Very good, but it's not seasoned the same way. The Dutch went halfway around the world to secure herbs and spices and only really ever learned to use mustard, I've noticed. Just saying that. This is how the legacy media operates. In a perfect, calm society, there wouldn't be a legacy media at all because there wouldn't be any debate to have. And people love a little bit of bread and circus. I just wanted to point out how here, an article that has nothing to do with politics, it has nothing to do with sociology. It has nothing to do with religion, which is another big one people fight over. It literally has to do with a goddamn herb, with a spice in Indian and Pakistani cooking. And they've managed to turn it into a faux debate. And so when you keep that in mind, looking through their political articles or something about religion, do keep it in mind. Just understand how the legacy media operates. Also, I just kind of wanted to show off the Hing. Yeah. I think it's delicious. I think it smells good, actually. Preamble. Have you edited any works on the historical and occult significance, symbolism, veneration, or worship of cats? Seems relevant. No singular work, but there are inclusions in a couple of the works. They'd all be under the academic header in my books blogs, tarlwarwick.wordpress or blogspot. Tarl Warwick Books, rather. You can peruse those at your leisure. Some of them do mention animal folklore, and cats are a big part of that. Yeah, by the way, shout out to Tasting History. You should definitely look him up on YouTube, because I actually found out about this first because of a recipe for Parthian chicken. It's an ancient East Roman recipe for a way to create chicken. Uses red wine, asafoetida, other ingredients. I thought it was goddamn the best fucking chicken, hands down, that I had ever had. And that was the first time that I've ever cooked a proper chicken, other than, the microwaving a chicken patty or something like that. It came out perfect. It was delicious. Skate Betty, OMG, what if Kamala gives the VP to Hillary? Lol. That wouldn't happen either. It would be a male. To be good, it'd be more likely Booty Judge than anyone else. Captain Cannabis, the hair looks glorious today. Happy Friday. Shout out to Alex, who can never catch this live. Sparky, fun fact, Alexander the Great brought South Asia their food style. The West's meat and veggies weren't a thing until the early Renaissance. True. Now, when Alexander's army and later the Romans marched through interesting areas, they tended to bring culinary art with them. And then you have a reinvasion of the West from the East, especially now. I love making stir fry. Wouldn't have been something you heard much of 200 years ago if you were in the United States or Western Europe. So yeah, keep in mind legacy media propaganda even extends to fucking food. The debate over bacon. Is it tasty or is it overrated? Shit like that. Sigil Stone 17 on Rumble. Morning Sticks. Have you been following Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, shooting themselves in the balls with a shotgun by revoking the open gaming license? Thoughts? No clue on it. Don't even know what Wizards of the Coast is, so I've got no thoughts. Sigil Stone 17, points for Dems, not snow jobbing Biden. It'll make them look even more dysfunctional and require a trial. Points for doing it. They can use it to block Clinton, too, in 24. Clinton's out. She's already ruled out a future run. She's stated that publicly. MAGA Bros. Hey, Sticks, huge fans here. We made an animation parody of you on MAGA Bros. Shout out MAGA Bros on Rumble. I think you'll find the parody amusing. Cheers, my friend. I will go and check that out later. Yeah, go to that really quickly. I won't watch it now, but I'll queue it up so that now I'm misspelling it. Jesus Christ. And I'll have to look it up manually. Anyway, I will watch it later. Sigil Stone 17. Isn't Hing the sound someone makes when you punch them in the balls? Pow. Hing. I think it's more hurng than anything else. Had one wacky kid in high school smack me in the balls randomly. I don't even know why he did it. He liked to try to troll me. He was a chucklehead. Then later on, he tried to sell me LSD. Cool guy. OMG Puppies. Wizards of the Coast own Magic the Gathering and D&D. They went woke, sadly. I think that was something that happened a long ago. They've ascended in their wokeness. Mitch McConnell, next news story. Mitch McConnell has achieved his goals in the Senate. I would ask which ones they are other than throwing the Senate races in the midterms, but unanswered question. What's left? Save the GOP from Trump. In 2020, it looked as if the Senate GOP leader's main legacy would be decades of Supreme Court conservatism. Then President Trump lost the election, honk honk, and refused to concede. And this is talking about how Mitch McConnell needs to step up and hammer Trump some more. And I'm thinking to myself, the neoliberals have finally come full circle to the point where they are celebrating Mitch McConnell. And they're so goddamn useless and weak and pathetic and stupid that they're actually expecting Mitch McConnell to be able to fucking do something about the evil MAGATs. they're hedging their bets on Mitch McConnell, dude. Think about how that sounds. It's like, only you can save us, Jeb Bush. Only you. Paul Ryan is going to save us. He's been weighing in on Trump, too. He's saying, well, I don't think that Trump should be the candidate for 24. Well, right now, your options are literally two people for the GOP. Donald Trump and John Bolton. Paul Ryan would probably go with John Bolton. At least he'd like his foreign policy, if not the way that he looks necessarily. There's something really wrong with it when the liberals have come around. They like the Bushes now. They like Mitch McConnell now. Hell, they were even simping a little bit for Kevin McCarthy. You realize how you sound to literally anyone who is not a partisan, correct? I don't think that they do. That's the problem. Robert Medina. Thanks for mentioning the Illinois assault weapons ban is totally unconstitutional. Yes, we will be talking about that a little bit in a moment. Nothing more cringe than a vet, says the prophet. Yeah, Biden has a 67 Corvette or something like that? Right next to the classified documents, like there's literally a picture of the two together. And Hunter Biden was frequenting that garage, so that's the most weird part about it. Is anyone going to ask whether he might have sold access to classified documents for crack money? Drug addicts do weird things, you know. Max is Wolf. Kamala becomes president, appoints Jeffries as VP. Voila, instant Barack 2.0 candidate. Possible, Hakeem Jeffries, although I think that he's a bit busy being the leader of the House minority at the moment. He might not want the job. He might say, well, I'm going to be in the Congress for a little while. Find somebody else to do it. The Dark Braga sent $2. No comment, thank you. Ozzy's Robots. So the Swiss are providing 5,000 soldiers to protect the Davos attendees. Call me naive, but I'm guessing if a group of elites are doing something beneficial for humanity, they wouldn't need a platoon of soldiers to guard them. Well, yeah, but I mean, they can afford it, so, no. Next news story. University of Southern California removes the word field for being racist. Now, they're not talking about, like, out in the field, like, a meadow or something like that. They're removing the word field from their official, like, paperwork and shit like that because it has racist connotations, specifically related to the use of the term as, like, a field, like the field of medicine, the field of history or something like that. Languages can be powerful. Phrases such as going into the field or field work maybe have connotations for descendants of slavery and immigrant workers that are not benign, it added. Apparently, throughout human history, only black slaves and immigrant workers have ever worked in fields. Farmers and native farm workers presumably never existed. This article mainly is satirizing them, by the way, for this decision. Instead, they're going to use the term practicum, which is Latin. Isn't that the language? The Romans had slaves too, so you need to get rid of that. I don't know exactly what term they'll use for it. Have that study, just to, instead of field of study, just shorten it to study or something like that. Oh no, studies. Who has a study in their house? Oh, the upper middle class and above. They have a study. That's a Victorian relic of the language. Okay, so you can't use study. Just throw some random word. George Floyd. Well, this is the George Floyd of history. This is the George Floyd of mathematics, and this is the George Floyd of science. Why not just the Malcolm X or something like that? You've got to be able to appease literally everyone because they're special snowflakes and very, very easily melted. E100 Omega 123, Russian bots, bad and evil, spreading tyranny. US bots, good and heroic, spreading democracy. Yeah, exactly. It's all about perspective. You can look at the message being spread and you can judge it more objectively, but the US engages in the same behavior. So does every relevant country in the world. Small third world countries typically don't do this. You have limited, if any, internet access in some of them. But even some tin horn state, even Venezuela, do you think that Maduro doesn't have a room full of college kids that get an extra, supply of rice each day in order to shitpost on the internet? Of course they do. Westfield 90. Rhinos like Ryan, Bush, Romney, and Barr always silent on Biden, but find time to attack Trump. Don't see the GOP winning with such party division. There's plenty of division in the Democratic Party, especially if they try to throw Biden under the bus. That would be, it'll be big if that happens. OMG puppies, cotton studies. Yeah, exactly. Matt Jones, good morning, Sticks. Enjoy my contribution to the Little Ones Diaper Fund. Thank you very much. Yeah, cotton skyscrapers fallacy is what I call it. Just a sec. By the way, again, the ratio of people on Rumble to people on YouTube remains roughly the same as it has been. Sometimes it's even higher, just to be clear. Drexkin, morning Sticks. What are the chances when it comes time for the FBI to search Biden's house? The judge gives an open-ended warrant and the FBI paws through underwear drawers and bathrooms, a la Mar-a-Lago. 0%. They will not do that. Although I would say that when you are the current sitting steward as opposed to the former president, you do have more legal protection, potentially. Sigil Stone 17. With his bodily fluid obsessed the woke tards are, it's not surprising they want to use a word with cum in it instead. Appears Rumble doesn't like that word with proper spelling. Yes, practicum. Mark T, thoughts on the whole AZ situation with Katie Hobbs and Carrie Lake? That is effectively a dead issue at the moment, but Lake is right to continue pursuing it because it allows the public to be told that the issue exists. At this point, it's about informing people, not about actually winning a legal case because she can't. It's too late for that. Next news story, we'll touch on it briefly because, of course, I already did a video this morning, and I am trying to get through these a little bit quicker because I'm actually making a winter veggie soup tonight with turnips. In Germany, you can actually obtain fucking purple top turnips. You can't get them here in the Netherlands. They never, for some reason, even though root crops are everywhere here, they never thought to plant in any turnips. Parsnips, yes. Turnips, no. I prefer the turnips. Governor J.B. Pritzker signs Illinois assault weapons ban. I would just like to point out here that it is dead on arrival. For those that are worried, and there are some people that are sending this news story to me, and they're worried like, oh my God, the liberals are gonna ban assault weapons. Cautiously, because you should always fight as though your rights will be taken away. You shouldn't worry too much about this. The Bruin decision makes it clear in black and white that this sort of measure is not going to stand up. It will be injuncted in days at most by a federal court, pending appeal. Therefore, it won't go into effect. You don't even have the sheriff's department willing to enforce it. So that's 90% of Illinois' land area that you can't do anything about this in. It'll be injuncted. It won't go into effect. And then it'll be combated in court. And Pritzker and his people, the anti-gunners, will lose. They'll get their silver medal, which is that they can then bitch about activistic courts wanting children to die. That's basically the long and short of it. The fact is that even under the auspices of the 10th, which does grant more latitude to states, you have a pre-existing SCOTUS case from the 2000s, namely D.C. Heller McDonald v. Chicago, those two cases of great import prior to Bruin, that relegates the states to the Second Amendment as well. It makes it clear that the Constitution of the United States does not simply cover federal behavior. To a great extent, it also covers state behavior. The states do have wider latitude, but they can't create a law that countermands any of your constitutional rights. With Bruin then being figured in, and demanding a litmus test of there being some historical basis for gun control, how can you possibly say that assault weapons, so-called, I realize it's not technically the proper term for these weapons. We're just going to use their colloquial usage because it's the only thing they understand. How are you supposed to establish historicity when those weapons didn't exist until much more recently than the United States was founded? Way post Crookshank, 1870s. You're talking another half century before you're getting prototypes for that type of weapon. Well, there can't be any. It physically can't exist. It would be like if you tried to do it with laser weapons. Lasers weren't mentioned by the founders. Laser weapons are a modern invention. They can't be covered under such a law. It's impossible to establish the historicity. The only thing that you could do is get a more sympathetic Supreme Court in the future, so stacked with, Biden appointees or something, an expanded court, to overrule Bruen, to say, no, we're reconsidering all these laws in light of the fact that actually Bruen was a bad decision. You don't have the votes to do that right now. You don't have any conservative justices likely to croak in the next 10 years. You don't have the high likelihood of a liberal administration come 24. If anything, you're more likely to see the court become more conservative again after 24. It's entirely possible that will be the case instead. I don't see this holding up to scrutiny. I think it'll be fairly quick, actually, as a case. And I think that it's more symbolic. I don't think that Pritzker and the others expect it to stand up to the scrutiny. What they're hoping for is the second place finish. They're hoping to be able to ramble about activistic courts and kids dying because they don't have anything else to talk about. What other platform do they have? They're hoping to invert the crime crisis narrative off on the conservatives by insinuating that they want little kids to be gunned down in schools. And that's really the long and short of it. Let's see. By the way, send no more super chats. I've got one more story to go through, and I think I have a dozen of them to read through here. Westfield 90. Unless the GOP masters the game of mail-in voting, all future red tsunami predictions will continue to be hoaxes. Yeah, you have to use the Ring of Sauron against Mordor at this moment. It's sad. Transylvanian 90. The unconstitutional Illinois law is just political grandstanding. They'll cite it every time they're blamed for the violent dysfunction of Chicago. That's what I think that they're doing. Chicago was so peaceful before they repealed our ban of assault weapons. Hell, radio lives. But the left's hokey hayseed term folks is not problematic. I sense a double standard. Yeah, taking off of the word Volk, doesn't that have gas oven connotations, liberals? Sparky. Many turnips are grown in neighboring Germany. Yeah, I wish they would import some of them fucking here. I had to go all the way to Germany to get a bag of turnips. When I saw, you should have seen my eyes light up when I saw that ship. Haven't even seen a turnip in years. Sigil Stone, 17 on Rumble. Metro Police be like, surrender your assault weapons for your protection. Protection from what? From what we'll do to you for having an assault weapon. Yeah, exactly. It comes with a mag restriction as well, which, probably will get thrown out as well. Rhode Island, again, the only place in which that sort of thing appears to have been successfully upheld. That'll probably go before the Supreme Court. Imagine you get Bruen 2.0 onto the same incarnation of the court and how much liberal head spinning there will be. Andrus Berzins, for the Corvette is as important as the government secrets fund. And now the final news story that I'll cover here. This is from my home state of Vermont. Yeah. I don't know that I'll settle back there in the future. I'm thinking New Hampshire is basically like a better version of Vermont anyway, although their property taxes are actually higher. Interesting for the free state, honestly. They probably should work on that. Be nice, they should drop it to 0 for the primary residence up to some arbitrary value. This is, by the way, my tax proposal. Your primary property that you live in up to some inflation-adjusted arbitrary point shouldn't be taxed at all. It's an actual home. You're not renting it from the government. Past that or a second home or something, go ahead. Delve into it. It's a pragmatic fix to the situation. Vermont seeks to ban paramilitary training camps by John Clark. A new Vermont bill seeks to ban so-called paramilitary training camps. So basically places that are unregistered by the government itself in which the militia trains. Clear violation of the Second Amendment under those auspices, but the state of Vermont is run by a progressive supermajority at this point, like the far left Dems, so they just ignore the law because they literally control the law. It takes a lot of oomph, a lot of money and time and effort, a lot of clout to get any case before a court that would actually take it up anyway. The Vermont court system is also dysfunctional. Vermont's 2022 election secured a stronger than ever progressive supermajority in the state legislature, and the one-party progressives are wasting no time pushing their agenda. This has to do with Slate Ridge, by the way. Paramilitary training camp, if you want to use that term. Not that far from Rutland, actually, within a stone's throw of where I live. A little bit west by northwest, if I remember correctly. And at Slate Ridge, they were doing military training. They had, the shack set up and stuff, and sort of like a paintball range, but with live fire exercises. And the government came in and raped them, basically. They came in, they used an environmental court to say that the structures couldn't be there and you weren't allowed to do this. They ended up having to default to that. Why? Because the training itself was perfectly lawful. Apparently, to cut the head off the snake, they're now bypassing themselves again and saying, okay, well, we'll just ban the camps from existing altogether. Then we won't have to go through the environmental court loophole to say, well, you're shooting trees, so, you are bad. We'll just ban this behavior altogether. S3, an act relating to banning paramilitary training camps targets the rights of citizens with shared interests to join together for legal militia training, an activity that by definition necessitates group gatherings. The statute's wording attacks freedom of expression by targeting specific categories of instruction. The bill would exempt police and formal military training by government. I wonder why. As well as an active shooter drill conducted by a Vermont school district, which has been proven to cause trauma to young children. Whatever. And sponsored by English teacher and fiction writer Phil Baruth, the effort reflects the usual progressive disdain for basic constitutional guarantees. A previous effort in Vermont sought to close the supposed Charleston loophole by imposing a 30-day waiting period on gun purchases, followed by denial of purchase as default with no right of appeal, aka due process. Yet they've been trying this for years. I think they are even trying to amend the Vermont state constitution. Just to be clear, while Vermont, because of the progressive supermajority, has gone more and more anti-gun faster than perhaps any other state, it is uniquely the inverse, that it's also the only state that additionally guarantees beyond the Second Amendment its own state constitution. So the fact is that this is leftoidism in action. It's a good reason to not move to Vermont. At this point, I've been asked for years, should I move to Vermont Sticks? It looks nice. Of course it looks nice. Yeah, it's green and clean, and there's friendly people. It's also being eroded. It's not going to be nice forever. You have Florida man. Pretty soon you have Burlington man now. Look at the murder rate in Burlington. It's not a big city. We need to take our state back. Unfortunately, these moron hippies are so profuse that that's probably not going to happen. So we might as well just fucking move to New Hampshire. Again, please don't send any more super chats. A couple more to get through. Not a banned account. Will President Harris then pardon President Biden? Probably it would be the case. Ozzy's Robots moved to North Florida. It's occasionally cool and no tax. Yeah, no, Florida's not really, I was there in Tampa and it was okay, I suppose, but I'd like a little bit more of a temperate climate. That's a little bit too warm for me. Adherent of Lady Columbia, you've mentioned that it currently feels like 2011 again, but aren't times like these also some of the best to learn a new skill as you don't exert too much energy on political shenanigans? Yes, learn new skills. Don't get black-pilled. Take the iron pill or something. So work out a little bit more. Learn a new skill, adopt a new hobby, get together with your community, man, start a homeschooling club or some shit like that. Learn canning, learn pickling, do something to improve your lot in life. And by the way, if everyone does this, society itself becomes stronger as well. The Dark Braga, New York Governor Hochul locks down Capitol building on Tuesday over 1,000 mandate protesters. Glorious. And Conservacuck over on Rumble says clank. Thank you for that. Thanks for the buck, my man. Get an energy drink. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what people should do. Make sure to improve yourselves. The government won't do it for you. Other people, you have to take initiative. That's the way to do it. Burlington man, don't be hating. And Transylvanian 90, Sticks, send no more super chats. Clankers, shut up and take my money. Yes, I better quit really quickly here before someone else gets one in. So I will go off now. Almost 5,000 at peak again. Getting pretty good. I realize fewer people have tuned in yesterday and today because I was inactive for 3 days live streaming. If I keep to the schedule, it is typically a lot higher. So I understand that. But, the other day we were in Munster. A couple days before that, it was Liz couldn't go out because the weather was too inclement. And if the baby's upstairs and not in a sleepy mood, it becomes impossible for me to stream, at least if I'm going to be coherent. Keep in mind, I do not stream on the weekends. So tomorrow it will be a much easier day, of course. That's about all. Peace out.